Morning everybody, welcome to another video. So today my client's requested, oh my god, it's amazing. My client requested one of my own custom pieces of art, and this is one of my watercolour pieces, part of a series that I'm working on. And this is what we're going to start with. So today we're going to do the start of a full back piece, starting with this guy, and then we're going to fill the whole back piece to be this kind of scrapyard dystopian kind of vibe, if that makes sense. So yeah, it should be really cool. So yeah, we'll see how we get on with that. So there's a start, and what we're planning on doing is we're going to cover up this top bit here, and we're going to put the character there. We're going to fill the whole thing with all these little dystopian characters and just see how we get along, really. So here's a look at the original artwork, which actually I provided for the client as a little gift. So check it out. Right guys, so a little bit of a myth is like you shouldn't shave anybody when they're dry. Well, that is actually a dry erase shaver. So why would you wet the skin and then use a dry erase shaver? I've seen so many tattoo artists going on there saying, oh, it's dry shaving. It's like, yeah, because that's what it's designed to do, you sausage. It actually takes off the dead skin, and if you go really hard with it, it takes off the skin too. It gets right down to that muscle there, and you know, a nice fresh piece of muscle. Imagine if you were tattooing in hell and no one had no skin because it all burnt off. Then it's that kind of like texture, which is good. Anyway, I'll be quiet now and do my job. Bit cold, mate, you ready? That's just soap, just to get the extra hair off. And then I'm going to sterilise it now with a little bit of isopropyl 70-30. Brace yourself. You should start from the middle really and work your way out. I always find you to turn your tissue around if it's soaked through a little bit, it gives you another clean side then, doesn't it? Cool. So I actually prefer to use stencil stuff, although if you go to easycartridge.co.uk, they've got a pretty cool one on there. So that's what we're going to be using today. Nice. And this is where we get to cream a man's back. You ready? Just enjoy it. It's fine. It's like having a massage. You know, I once went for a Thai massage. I thought it'd be relaxing, and she turned me into a pretzel. Couldn't believe it. This tiny little Thai woman. Thought, what damage could she really do? Oof, I felt it. It's terrible. So, I'm thinking we'll get the main event there. If you just drop your shoulders, mate, if you can. Oh, try not to rip my stencil. That'll be handy, won't it? There we go. I'm thinking we'll go there with him. So I kind of want the bulk of the detail on that nice flat piece of skin at the top. But I need enough background to kind of cover that when I get around to it. So we'll pop him there. Yeah. Pop him there. You know, hopefully. A little bit crease, but we're having to do a little bit of freehand detail in there anyway because the stencil's only very basic and it's my own work. So the idea is to kind of even things out, make it look dead smart, you know. So I'm gonna let that soak in a little bit just to make sure I've got maximum adherence, and then should be good. See, look, a little bit weak in that corner there, isn't it? Look at that. How are we going to get around that? I think we'll be all right. We'll start there anyway. Cool. I like him. He's cool. Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, my cravings for shit are going a lot less, which is good because when I get into this stage, I'll be proper into it, you know what I mean? Yeah. I feel a lot.
When you start depleting a bit, you'll start craving stuff.
Yeah. Like I'm already craving a banana and not hot pastry. Weird. Yeah, right, fancy a banana. And a big piece.
Yeah.
I'm not even gay. For some reason, this vegan thing's making me gay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through that stencil. I'm going to do a basic line session to start with, maybe with a 3 or a 5, depending. And then we'll go through and start putting in all the line weights and the textured details to make it look like that brush kind of effect in places. It depends how it goes, but we'll see what happens. So I'm using easycartridge.co.uk and it's the Easy Select needles. Fantastic needles, especially these ones. These are the P0603RL, which is super cool for doing fine line stuff. And a big shout out to Quantum. That's the inks we're using. Absolutely fantastic. If you want to check out Quantum inks, I'll leave a link below as well. And same for the cartridges. So what I'm doing is I'm just mapping out these little lines with a very fine needle. And then what we'll do is we'll go over with our larger needles to create the proper line weights and everything. And I want to go really light with these so I'm not overworking when I go back over, basically. So that's the way we're going to do it. So even though it looks a little messy at the minute, that's all by design, it's intentional. And besides, I did the artwork as well. The line work's supposed to be intentionally a little messy anyway. There's a whole point behind it. I'm so tired of doing realism sometimes where you just want to step back and do something a little bit more artsy looking. It's a bit trickier the second time round because you're copying something. First time round it was just sort of off the top of my head. So I just kind of went with it. But this time it's like you got to really look to make sure you're replicating that accurately, which is cool. So as you can see, what I've done is I've used a super fine needle. This is the Easy 3-round liner, size 6. So each individual needle is a size 6 on that needle. And we put a basic outline in, nothing too special. There is a bit of irritation around it, that's to be expected on some people. And then we're just going in and started contrasting all the areas. So as you can see, I'm building it up slowly. And then we'll do a wash of colour over that until it's finished. So yeah, this is just an 18 round shader that I'm using on a 4mm stroke machine to fill in those blacks and try to get those soft edges as well. So like I said, I'm just fading off those blacks there. I'm trying to tuck it in to the edge and then create that contrast throughout all of the little segments, if that makes sense. So I'm literally just using black for this whole thing. I'm using Quantum's Lining Black. And like I said, we're just filling out the solid black areas and just fading off to where the shadowing falls off. And then we're getting with the grey and then the colour. So as you can see, guys, I've got the initial black work done, and now it's time to go in with some cool grey and a bit of colour. So this colour section was originally done during a live TikTok stream in a busy studio. So I've added some commentary here to show you how I've managed to approach what I'm doing. Before introducing any colour, I've already established my darker contrast with black, faded that off into mid-grey, and that gives the value structure to work inside of. So now I'm layering colour over the top rather than trying to build everything from saturation alone. When I designed this piece, I used watercolour markers for the line work and then softened that out with a water brush to create that washed painterly look. So when it came to tattooing it, I tried to replicate that same tonal language in the skin by selecting a palette that closely matched the original reds, oranges, ochres and browns from the painting. You'll notice that I'm mixing quite loosely on the fly here. I'm not trying to pack one flat tone into each area. I'm constantly adjusting the hue to stay as close as possible to the reference image while keeping the values we've already placed intact. Colour often loses some of its initial brightness once healed, so leaving certain areas slightly softer at this stage can help maintain contrast long term. Once that base colour's in, we can come back in with selective highlights to reinforce the focal points without losing the looseness of the original artwork. I recommend any artist doing this should have a basic understanding of colour theory, but you can see when I wipe this image, I've kept the tonal language from the original image and kept those legs in shadow. That's by keeping the inks desaturated, keeping the contrast, and keeping everything at a certain value. And we're going to carry that same logic throughout the image now while I do these reds and all of the other colours in the image. So I work with artists privately on this sort of thing through one-to-one online mentorship sessions, whether that's portfolio reviews, colour realism, or improving your overall composition and contrast. So if you want direct feedback on your work, you can check out the link in the description. Thank you. Well, another point to note is if you are doing shadows and you have to go back and improve any of those shadows once the colour is in, that can happen from time to time, but be very careful that you don't muddy up the colours that you've already done. So one of the biggest challenges with custom artwork is deciding what to keep from the original design and what needs to be adapted for skin. What works on paper doesn't always translate one-to-one, and some areas need simplifying and others need to be exaggerated to survive healing. A lot of newer artists assume that more saturation equals more impact, but often it's restraint that allows the contrast to hold up long term. If everything is pushed to maximum intensity, the piece can lose depth once it settles. Throughout this stage, I'm thinking less in terms of individual colours and more in terms of layers of value. What sits in front, what recedes, and how those relationships will read once the skin calms down. So let's get the rest of this colour done and then we'll get on to the highlights, which is where the fun happens. So guys, that's a lot of the colour done. I'm just going to go in there and put the light parts in, the highlights, and it should be okay for this session. So the colour's gone in quite nice, although there has been a lot of bleeding with this particular client. However, it's not a stress because he's coming back in for the whole back done, so any bits of patchy ink due to bleeding can always be fixed on another session. So yeah, let's have a go at those whites. So I'm just using Quantum Ink's Bitchin' White on this particular tattoo, and when I do whites, just pull down that voltage ever so slightly, and then we'll pop in a couple of those highlights in a few areas. There's quite a lot to go actually, because there is a lot of white points. I'm using an easy cartridge 5 round liner. It's hitting pretty well. Nice slow speed, just chilling, getting the whites in. No stress, nice easy hand speed, just to give it that extra dynamic. Now some clients that you get, the colours and the white won't pop straight away. It might take a bit of healing, a bit of settling, finish bleeding and things like that. But you can be damn sure that the Bitchin' White stays in, because I've had a couple of healed clients come back and it looks insane. Get the edges right where the light would catch. There we go. That's not a particularly realistic design, but you need to stick to the same rules within reason. Just a little bit of something in there. Maybe we'll just separate bottom lip in there, a few highlights in there. I love the way that's looking, that's awesome. And this easy P3 Pro pen, I can't fault it. It's got an adjustable stroke. You take the machine apart and just adjust the stroke in there, and I usually keep this at a 3mm stroke. But today I've just whacked it back up to a 4mm. And then this is what we're using to pack in that colour. How you feeling, dude? You alright?
Yeah, good to go on.
I've been sort of like a trooper today. See, the whole point of this particular style is that scratchy nature, so it's been quite refreshing just to be kind of loose with a lot of the colouring, and you know, just pulling it to life, you know, leaving little bits of skin tone here and there just to enhance the look of it, and we'll see how that heals, and if it needs a little bit more colour we can always pop it back in on session 2. So yeah, I wouldn't usually use negative skin in a colour piece at all, but for this I feel like somehow it seems to work ever so slightly, as long as we're not overdoing it. Just helps the whites fall off just ever so slightly in places. I'm sure that there's some artists out there that wouldn't do that and probably thinks I'm crazy, but we'll see what the final result looks like. I absolutely love this Bitchin' White, it's amazing. Just so crisp. Don't have any problems whatsoever. But my advice to anyone that puts highlights is keep that voltage nice and low. Really work that ink in. Steady wins the race. It is a thicker ink, of course, so it does need a little bit more. Although it's not too thick, the quantum though, it's actually quite workable. I've worked with some white inks that are like ice cream, and it's like, yeah, not great. I just love that extra dimension that gives it. It looks so cool. A little bit unfinished on that shoulder with some colour right in there, so we're going to fix that as well. So this does happen with me because there's so much going on. So what I'll do is I'll just switch over to my other needle ever so slightly. There we go, there it is. And it's just there's a little bit of grey just in that middle one. And a little bit on the bottom. It's just sort of very scratchy patchy in there, it's not perfect. A little bit in there. And the rest of that, it's a little bit yellow. So I get yellow in there as well. Yep. And that's pretty much it, to be honest. Because now we can go back in and finish off our highlights. So there we go. When you're doing highlights as well, you get creative with it. You don't need to stick to, you know, if it's creative stuff like this, you don't need to be so methodical all the time. Just get creative with it. Think about where the reflections are. And you'll be surprised how it kind of all comes together. And the most important thing to remember is that if you care about the art and you want to do an amazing piece and you set things up in the right way with your client so they understand exactly what the process is, what they're getting and everything, you don't have to get everything done in one session, because at the end of the day, if anyone can find a fantastic oil painting that's been done in one session, then it's rare. You know, if you're doing realism especially, you're not going to find like an amazing painting that's not had time and energy and thought and layers and things put into it, obviously. You know, oil painting, you know, with an oil painting, you start with the grisaille, which is the under layer, the burnt umber, or raw umber or whatever, to get the map out the shadows and all that stuff. And then you'd go over there and you'd go from lean to fat. So you put your thinner paints at the bottom, and then you build up in layers right to your paints with the oil in there to stop cracking over time. But then also that's building up your layers of the oil painting to give you the final result, you know. Even acrylic you use to some degree, multiple layers, especially if you're doing realism, to create, you know, the right blends and details and things. I'm trying to simplify this for anyone watching really, but to create amazing paintings. So it's the same with tattoos. You might not get everything in one session. You know, you might have to come back and say, oh, I've got to tweak this, I've got to touch that up, I've got to put a little bit of detail in there. Because it's not a canvas. It's skin, and it bleeds, and it moves and twitches and farts and everything. So, yeah. And complains and wants breaks and dinners. Although this guy's been pretty solid all day, to be fair, so yeah. Has dramas with their exes on the phone while you're tattooing it and stuff. So yeah, just stick to canvases, honestly, really much easier life for you. All I'm really doing as well is I'm finding an opportunity to fill in any little gaps with the white, even if it's not on my reference, because it'll help just give it that sparkle. Like especially around the edge of the cracked areas there, just get some in the edge there. It'll give it the sense that it's catching the light. You can see the cracks stand off. That makes sense. Which is wonderful, of course. And yeah, it just gives it that other dimension. Really, really does finish it off. And even when the whites, and they will fade a little bit, you know, they won't fade completely, but people like sun and they like to not look after the tattoos and all this stuff. And if that happens, at least you got that negative space there. You can always top them up in future if necessary, but so yeah, I've really enjoyed doing this one, and we're coming to a close, guys. So if anybody has liked what you see, drop us a subscribe, hit the bell, and give us a share if you can. And if you've got any questions, just fire away and I'll try and get back to people in the comments below. Any further questions you can send to my website at arcane-inc.co.uk. There's a link in the description and in my bio. And I'll answer questions there as well. And for anybody interested in learning some techniques, you could also check out Ben Fisher's courses. Again, link in description. And he's got some really cool resources for people that are learning. Fully recommend, so check those out. And if you want to see me do an interview with Ben Fisher as well, you can check over his channel and look at his series on searching for the UK's best tattoo artists. And we're on episode 1, I think it is, so yeah. I'm not making any claims, but it's a cool watch if you're interested. And this is not my usual style. This is just something that I'm doing for my own kind of painting. Like I was trying something different, experimenting, if you will. And the client liked it so much, so he decided to dedicate his life to it. So there you go. Cheers, guys. Take it easy. Bye. Thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe, hit the bell, and join me in part 2 where we do more on this back piece and you can learn a bit more.